Hi all, welcome back to West Isola. This video is going to be one from the Workbench series, and one I'm going to be looking at is programming decoders for use in consists. It's something I found sort of quite confusing when I first started looking at them. So I thought, once I've sort of worked out in my own mind what I was doing, I thought I'd go ahead, put it down on a video, and hopefully it might help some other people. A few caveats on this. Although the general principles are probably going to be the same, I am using in my system all Soundtrack Tsunami 2 decoders. So that's what this is based around. But as I say, the general principles ought to be the same for everything. So hopefully it'll be of some use. So let's go ahead and see how we get on. So following on now, what is consisting? So that's the first thing we're sort of going to look at. So for me, this is really what it's all about. It's the ability to run more than one loco at the same time, and in effect as though they were just a single throttle. So you twist the throttle from speed step 0 to speed step 64, and all the locos in the consist will run at speed step 64, whatever that is, and they will run together and they will run consistently. So what it does, it allows us to mimic real life operations that's out there in the world, especially as an American railroader. It's sort of more common than not that you're going to be doing this. So things like distributed power, the ability, say, with on a lot of American railroads and other countries, we can have engines at the front of a train. We can have engines in the middle of a train, and we can have engines at the back of the train, all working really as one. Now, in real life, they've obviously nowadays they've got very sophisticated control systems that allow them to do this. In the past, they'd have a crew in every loco, and they'd use whistle signals back in the days of steam to be able to tell each other what to do, etc. But that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to mimic that. For example, in the UK, multiple locos isn't really a common thing on our railways. We occasionally get what we get called double heading on their two locos at the front. And in some places would have what they call bankers, which was to help push trains up steep hills on there. But to be fair, we don't, in our country, we don't tend to have the length of trains to warrant multiple locos in a train. Also, you go again, especially again in America, with their covered wagons, the F units and E units. We'd have A units, where we'd have different types of things. The A units had the cabs and the engines in it, and then the B units would just be wouldn't have a cab on there at all. We also sort of have this in the UK, especially with our passenger services, with our EMUs, electrical multiple units, and DMUs, diesel multiple units. It's quite common in this country. These set up as sets, maybe two carriages in a set, or four carriages in a set, etc. But then in busy times or on different routes, they will couple multiple sets together, so you can end up with three two-car sets connected together to act as a single six-car set. So that's quite a common thing in this country with passenger services. So that's what it is and why we need it. So when it comes to model railroads, there are different ways we can achieve this. Obviously, in the real railroad, as I said, they've got sophisticated systems to be able to do all this. We've got to manage this within our model railway world. Back in the day, if you had pure DC systems, it was incredibly difficult to be able to do this sort of thing on there, if not next to impossible to do it. People did do it. The way they'd also do it is they'd do it by having dummy locos which didn't have a motor in them, and we were pulled around as though they were a wagon, etc. But with the coming of DCC, digital command control, this all changed, and we've got the ability now to do a lot of things that we couldn't do back then. So the NMRA sort of defines three main consists in there. These names sort of vary from place to place, but as far as I can see, these are what the NMRA call them. The first one is known as address consisting. And this is really simple. You basically give every single loco in your consist the same address. So if you've got 4 locos, they would all have the address of, say, 1111 or whatever. Most of us, I think, normally give our locos a DCC address, a long address of its identification number. So 1342 or whatever it may be. So what we do there with address consist, we just give them all the same. So now when the command station sends out the packet of information to a particular address, so it sends it out to 1111, all these locos all respond to address 11111. There are a couple of problems. DCC obviously says tell the loco to go forwards or tell the loco to go backwards at the very simple at a particular speed. Now the thing with this is obviously if you've got your locos connected back to back, like most seem to be in a system, then they will both go forward, so they will pull against each other. So one of the things you've got to do with address consisting, you've got to go into one of the locos and tell it to run in the reverse direction, so that when it reads that gets the command to go forward, it actually runs backwards. So you're fooling the loco into thinking it's facing the other way around. What this obviously means, if you take it out the consist, as well as rechanging the address, you've also got to make sure you change the direction of travel on it. The other thing that, sorry about that. The other thing that will happen is the fact that if you tell this address to sound its horn, then all the locos in the consist will sound their horn. So if you've got 4 locos in the consist, you'll have 4 horns going off and 4 bells ringing or whatever else it may be on there. The next step up for this was a thing called basic consisting. And this is where the command station itself, so obviously you've got to have a command station that supports this. The command station remembers what locos are in a consist, and the big advantage of this one is it actually remembers which way they're facing. So on my system, for example, you can build a consist in the command station, and as you're building it and as you're adding locos to the consist, you'll tell the command station which way round they're facing on the system. Now what happens is when you tell the command station that you want to, say, have consist number 10 going off, going forwards, what happens is the command station now knows that consist number 10 actually consists of 2 locos. One is 1111 and the other one is 2222. So what it actually does, it sends out 2 commands, 1 to each loco, so it doubles the amount of packets that it's sending out on the system, and it tells it the loco to move. Because it knows which way the loco is facing, it will automatically tell a loco to go backwards if it needs to, or go forwards, whatever it happens to be. A couple of disadvantages with this: you've still got the same problem. If you sound your horn, they all sound, etc., etc. The other problem, this consist only applies on your layout with that command station. If the command station fails, for example, and you put a new one in, you'd have to set them up again. Or if you take your locos onto somebody else's layout, it doesn't know that they're consisted together. So you would have to set them up again on that person's layout on their system. But again, a method of doing it. The one we're going to be looking at, and the one I suggest is probably the best, well, it is the best way of doing it, is a thing called advanced consisting. And this is where all the information about the consist is held in the decoders of the involved locos. So instead of having the command station remember or setting them up all the same, we just go in to each loco and give it information about the consist on there. So for example, the loco now has 2 addresses. It has its own address, if you like, its unique address, usually, as I say, the cab number on it, and then it will also have a consist address. And while it's in the consist, it will respond to the consist address, and while it's not in the consist, it will respond to its own address. This makes it much more flexible about the way we set things up. We can set it up so they don't all respond to the horn command, etc. It also means that if we take these locos to another layout, then they will still be in their consist and work exactly the same as they did at home for you. So what do we have to do to set up these things to do advanced consisting? Well, a bit of preparation that is needed. The First thing, it's highly recommended to use decoders from the same manufacturer in the consist. Now, in all likelihood, I have no idea. I've never seen it. I've never tried it. You probably could consist loco with different decoders in there, one from ESU, one from Soundtracks, but it would probably be quite a bit problematic. On my layout, as I've mentioned before, I've standardized on the, Soundtracks Tsunami 2 decoders. That's what I use on my layout. So every loco has had a Soundtracks Tsunami 2 put into it on the system. So it's highly recommended for that. The next thing you need to do is you want to speed match your locos. This is a relatively simple job. It can be a bit time consuming, but it is relatively simple. What you basically want is that you want all your locos to go up when they're at speed step 128, i.e. flat out. They all need to go at the same speed, whatever that speed is. If they're at speed step 64, then you want them to go at the same speed, and so on and so forth. You to stop them pushing and pulling against each other. This is something that if you back in the days of DC, you had no control over, with the fact that we can set up our locos quite well using DCC and variable speed max and all sorts of things that we can go in and do. So it takes a little bit of time, but well worth doing, even if you're doing something as simple as on there, just limiting the top speed. All my locos on my layout are set up identically. They all have a top speed of 20 mile an hour, and as near as I can get it, they are speed matched to each other, so that they all run at the same speed, 10 miles an hour at speed step 64, speed step 32, they run at 5 miles an hour, etc., etc. Now, on my layout, it's simple. It's a big switching layout, or it's a small switching layout, and that's all they have to do. I would guess that if you're running a large layout where you've got both mainland and switching, you might want to do different categories of locos, much as probably they do in real life. So you'd probably have mainline trains which can run at a faster top, have a faster top speed than switch locos, and so on. That would be probably what I'd do if I had a layout. Now, actually, to speed step them, I was really lucky, because what I've got is one of these, which makes it really useful. I don't believe they're made anymore. So that loco's doing 18 mile an hour as it went through the trap. I don't believe that these are made. There are alternatives, or you can do it simply with a stopwatch, get on a known length of track and do a bit of calculations. Say I use this, and I use JMRI because I can do programming on the main with it. So I could literally send it through at speed step 128, see what the speed was, adjust it down, and so on and so forth. So it took a bit of time, but well worth doing on the system. The next thing you want is all the momentum to be the same on the locos. What you don't want is, I don't know, a loco taking 5 seconds to go from standing still to its top speed, and another loco taking 10 seconds to go from it there, because again, you'd end up with pushing and shoving within the consist. Again, this might be something that you would categorize your locos at on your layout. Another thing that's important is making all the functions the same on all the locos, so that F1 does the same thing on all your locos. Now, I suggest this is a good idea even if you're not consisting, because it means you don't have to remember what you're doing is the same on all the ones. You're not swapping backwards and forwards between different functions. You're not saying, no, the horn is function 2 on one loco and function 5 on another loco, and so on. So on my layout, this is what I've standardized on there. Say I use Soundtracks decoders Tsunami 2s. So this is what I've standardized. And what I've tried to do is keep all the things I use each day. So or while it's running, so the horns and etc. on the front. My particular controller has 10 functions on each group, if you like. So F0 to F9 is the standard. If I want to do F12, I have to change to a different program. I have to press a button to say go to the second group, and then press a button to go to the third group if I want to go to F20. So what I've tried to do is put things that are done once i.e. when the loco starts up, for example, like turning the lights on and that are all at the back, and things that I use as I'm going along are all at the front. Now I'm still playing around with this. I have changed things a few times to do this, to get things the way I want, and I probably will change them again as I go through, but it's a starting point. But when I change it on one loco, I change it on all the locos. So one of the things we have to do is we've got to work out in a consist what functions does each loco actually need to work. What does it actually need doing? So here's a reminder of the functions on my locos, the way they're set up. And what we're looking at here is this is our lead loco. So this is our loco at the front of our consist, and it's running forwards. So that's what we're working on. So what we're going to do is go through and have a look of what functions we think we're going to need on there. Now, one of the things that I'd like to say is that I've sort of done these, if you like, out of my own head. I've sort of worked out what I think it would be. If anybody knows that if in real life they're not set up like a loco isn't set up in this particular way, especially when it regards to the lights, etc., then I'd be really grateful if you'd let me know in the comments. So if we look at our lead loco, for example, 0 is our function for the headlight, and we want the front headlight to work on our lead loco, but we don't want the rear headlight on, because my understanding is that the headlight wouldn't be on the rear of a loco in a consist. If it's actually in the consist, you wouldn't be able to see it. So that's why we'd leave that blank. We then look at the bell. Do we want the bell? Yeah, we want the bell to work on our lead loco. We want the air horn to work on our lead, the short air horn to work, dynamic brakes to work. We want the RPM minus and RPM plus. That's a soundtrack thing where you can up the revs without actually upping the speed or on there. We want the dimmer to work. We want the brakes to work. We want the grade crossing signal to work. We want straight to 8 to work, straight to idle to work, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go right the way down on the list, but that's basically what we're looking at is actually going to need. And we do that for our lead loco to come up with what it is. And we basically do that for every loco that we've got. So what we end up with is a thing like this. So these are all the functions that I want to work on my lead loco. That's so it's at the front of the consist and it's running frontwards. So for example, function 26, we don't need that because that's the markers. I've only got one loco with markers on it. That's a Canadian national one, as my understanding is. The markers are only on, they're on the rear of the engine, and they're only on when that engine is at the rear of the train or at the rear of the consist. Again, 24, we don't want the rear ditch lights to be on, and so on and so forth. So that's the one for my lead loco running forwards. So then we go through every possible combination of locos and do the same. So here's a rear loco. This would be, so these two together would probably be the most common, two locos, and we have a rear loco. So it's at the end, it's at the rear of the consist, and the loco itself is actually running backwards. So that's our usual, if you like, cab out two loco consisting. So again, if we go through, we want the front light on, because when the consist is running backwards, we want the light on the front of the rear loco to then come on. We don't want the horns to work or the bell to work on that, because they should only work on the lead loco. We do, however, want the brakes work. We don't want the grade crossing signal to work, because again, the horn, etc., should only work on the front. We go along, and we don't want the markers to work on this, and so on. So we've set up the way we want that to do. The other possible one we can have at the rear is if the rear one was running forwards, so elephant style. So now this time we don't want the front headlamp to work, because that would be in the middle of the consist, but we do want the rear one to work. Everything else is pretty much the same, except we get down to here when we look at the ditch lights. On this, we don't want the front ditch lights to work, we want the rear ditch lights to work. So when it's running When the consist is running backwards, these are the ditch lights that are going to work in. So that, if you like, is the front and rear ones. But if we have a middle one, okay, so we have to have a loco running in the middle, then basically neither of its lights are going to work, its ditch lights are going to work. So again, we're removing all the functions that we don't want to work. So when I send out, for example, the consist is running forwards and I press function button 0, the only thing that happen will be the front headlight will come on the lead loco. If I sound the horn, only the lead loco will have its horn sound, the rest won't. Same with the bell. Now again, I don't know for definite whether that's true or not, but that's the way I think it is. Now I did say I've done all possible combinations, but there is one that later on you'll see there's a bit of realization where I realize I didn't have one. What I haven't got is what happens if the lead loco, so the lead loco in the consist is actually running rearwards, and I haven't done that. So that's something I'm going to have to need to sit down and work out later on what I need to do in that scenario. But basically, once you've done this for, in this instance, once we've done the corrected one, we've done it 5 times. That's it. We've done it. We don't have to do it again. So it does take, and we don't have to do it once for all our locos, assuming the functions are the same on every single loco. So moving on then, once we take this, what do we do with them? Well, there are on decoders, there are things known as the consisting CVs. I'm going to be looking at Soundtrax's ones. I'm guessing ESU have got them, different numbers because these aren't part of the standard. So different numbers on there that we have. So let's have a look at them. Let's say on Soundtrax, we've got 5 CVs associated with consisting. We have CV19, which has the consist address, which we'll look at in a bit. So that holds the address of the consist. 21 controls functions F1 to F8. That determines whether they're going to work on this particular loco or not, as we'll see. 22 does the front and rear headlamps and F9 to F12. 245 is functions 13 to 20, and 246 is 21 to 28. So they are the 5 numbers or 5 CVs that we have to program in each loco. Sounds a lot, but once you get into it, it's relatively quick. So let's have a look at the first one. First one is our consist address. It can be anything between 1 and 127. So it doesn't clash. I would suggest don't use 3 as that's the default one that locos come with from the manufacturers. So I wouldn't use 3, but we could if we wanted to. I would also suggest keeping the numbers relatively simple unless you've got lots. I tend to use 10 and 20 and so on. And the reason for this is that we'll see in a minute. So if I want to remove it, so by putting a number between 1 and 127 in CV19, you have added it to the consist. At that point, it will stop reacting to its own number and start reacting to the consist address. So if you've got a loco and its long DCC address is 1234, it will do everything in 1234 until you put something between 1 and 127 in CV19. It will now start ignoring 1234 and start reacting to whatever it is you've put in to 19. If you want to remove it for a consist, all you have to do is set CV19 to either 0 or 128. Doesn't matter which one, both of them do the same job. As soon as you do that, it will stop reacting to the consist address and it will now revert to reacting to its own address. If you've got a loco that's running in reverse in your consist, you have to tell it that it's running in reverse, and you do it by adding 128 to the consist address. So this is why I say keep it simple. So if you've given your consist an address of 1, then if a loco was running in reverse, CV19 of that loco would be set to 129. If you've set your consist address to be 10, then in a loco running in reverse in the consist, you set it to 138. And that's it. It doesn't affect the loco when it's not in the consist. It will react normally to the controls direction once you've put 0 or 128 in here. This only applies while it's in the consist. So here's an example. We've got a consist address of 10. So our lead loco running forwards would have a consist address of 10, or a loco in the consist running forwards would have a CV19 set to 10. If it's running in reverse, it will be set to 138, 10 plus 128. So that's our first CV. Just says, this is, you now belong to this consist. In effect, this is all you need to do to get it to go into a consist. Once you've done this, it will then work as a consist. Everything we do everything we do later really is to make it work, or to make it improve the accuracy of the way it works within a consist with regard to lights, etc. What functions it applies to. So if you did this and nothing else, then again it would be a little bit like the previous two examples we talked about, where when you sounded the horn, all the locos' horns would sound, etc. If you leave your locos like this and take them to somebody else's layout, then they will run on the address that you've put into this CV19. They will react the same. So moving on to the other ones. So CV21 controls whether functions 1 to 8 actually do anything. So you go into each loco, you tell it, on this loco, I want you to react to function 1. On this loco, I want you to react to function 8. On this loco, I don't want you to react to it. Now, this CV and the ones we're going to do next are only operational while there's something in CV19 and a valid consist address in CV19. As soon as you put CV19 to 0 or 1 to 8, then it completely ignores what's in these CVs. It'll ignore what's in CV21 completely. They only apply while it's in a consist. So if we going back, we look at our lead loco. For example, we wanted it to react to all F8 to F1. We want it to react to all of those. So we put a 1 in the ones we want it to react to. So this is binary, bit 0 and bit 7, and the decimal equivalent of that is 255. So basically on a bit of paper, you could write this out, 1111, stick that into your Windows calculator or whatever, and it'd come up. And then that's the value that we're going to put in CV21 to tell that particular loco, I want you to react to all of these functions. So when I press F1, you react to F1. When I press F6, you react to F6. A loco running rearwards, with on my system, this is what I'm going to read. Again, it's got bit 7 to that. I don't want it to react to the horns. So that's the F1 is the bell on mine. F2 is the long horn. F3 is a short horn. I don't want you to react to them. So I put it into zeros, but I do want all the rest. That gives me a value of 248. So on a loco that was running rearwards, there at the end of a consist, I would put 248 in CV21. Similarly, with it running the other way around, it's basically the same. I want it to react to functions 1 to that. The mid loco, I want it to be slightly different. I can't remember what F7 is offhand, but I don't want it reacting to F7. So I have that on there and so on. So that's CV21, controls whether it responds, this particular loco, while it is in a consist, responds to F1 and to F8. CV22 controls whether it responds to the front headlight, the rear headlight, and F9 to 12. And again, we've got this the same thing, 8 bits, and a decimal equivalent. So our lead loco, notice bit 7 and bit 6 are always 0. On this, they're always 0. Then I decide what do I want it to react to. So in this instance, I want it to react to 9, 10, 11, and 12. I don't want it to have the rear headlamp on. So I don't want it to react to that. So I put that as a 0, but I do want it to run the front headlamp because it's my lead loco. So again, 61 is the decimal equivalent. And I do exactly the same with the rear, going by that little list we did a few ago, saying what functions I want them to react to, and just go through, and it gives me the various values on there that I'm going to react to. And all we do is the same for the other functions. 245 controls whether this loco is going to respond to 13 to 20. So in my instance, on my setup, all the locos respond to F20 and all the locos respond to F14. They don't respond to anything else when they're in a consist on my setup. So the value is going to be the same, 130 on all of them, the decimal value. CV246 controls 21 to 28, where it revacs. And again, we do exactly the same. We use the initial list that says, yep, I want it to respond to F28, which in my instance is mute. I'm moving the mute button to F28 on mine. So F28 is mute. So yeah, I want it to mute. I want them all to mute. And then I've got the various combinations that we did from the list, and that gives me the values to put in when I'm doing there. So what we basically end up with is the consist number and 5 values that go into these to control the functions for each loco that we're setting up. So how to remember all this lot? Well, the simple answer is we haven't got a chance of remembering it all. So what I've done on my layout is I've come up with this. This is my little cheat sheet that I have on my system. So it's simply printed out and laminated into plastic. On the left-hand side, it tells me all the functions and what they do. And then over here, it tells me what the consist CVs are in there. So those numbers we've just worked out, for example, CV21 on the lead loco is 255. CV19 on a lead loco going forwards, and this is where I've got a problem. I haven't got one of these for the lead loco running backwards, which I should have done. But the lead loco running forwards will have the consist number, whatever it is. The mid one, a middle loco will have the same as this, but it depends whether the middle loco is running forwards or backwards. Depends on whether it has 128. A loco at the rear running backwards will have the consist number plus 128. A loco at the rear running forwards will just have the consist number, but these ones vary. You notice that says CV22 is 57 and CV22 there is 58. So this is my little cheat sheet that I use when I'm doing things. It's quite small, and it allows me just to whistle through them when I'm actually setting up a consist on there. And if anybody else came to my layout, hopefully with a few seconds of telling them what it means, they would be able to understand it as well. So having had a look at all that, if you like the boring bit, let's move on to the practical bit and see what we actually do when we're doing it on the layout. The practical part of setting up a consist will follow in part 2.